It's good day to brew, baby. What is up, you sheep? It's your boy Millsy. Back to I'm talking about it, back for another episode of Millsy Brews, the show where I brew version 1.0 deck lists of the commander in front of us on my quest to brew the magic world. You know the motto, baby. It's ABB, always be brewing, and that's what we're back to do today. The deck list is going to be down in the description for you below, as well as I'd really appreciate if you could interact with the video, like, comment, subscribe, do all that YouTube stuff. The Discord link's down in the description below, and it's been popping lately. I'd love for you to come join. But today, as we continue through Abs Week, a couple of the pre-con upgrades I did, I was happy with some of the lists, but I think some of them could be a little bit different. So today, we're taking Felothar, one of the pre-con commanders, right? And I'm going to spin this a lot more towards walls, defenders. In my upgrade video and my full brew, I kind of tried to do more of a full toughness matters, not just focusing on the walls and the defenders. But this time around, I wanted to lean a lot more into the walls, take real advantage of them, and trying to make this deck more focused on that as opposed to just toughness matters, in general. So Felothar is a 4-mana 0/5 human warrior that says each creature we control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. Creatures we control can attack as though they didn't have defender. That's important because most of our walls and that have defender means that creature cannot attack, it can only block. And then for 3 mana, we can tap to sack another creature to draw cards equal to its toughness and discard cards equal to its power. The big reason to spin towards walls for Felothar is that a lot of them don't have any power. So when we sacrifice them, we're only going to draw cards, which I think is the upside of what we're looking to do with Felothar. But I want to say a quick thank you to the channel members. Thank you so much for watching and supporting. If you're interested in seeing all the videos early, for just $1 a month, check it out down below. But all right, since we're spinning a lot more into the defenders, we're bringing in some different creatures that were in the pre-con. First example one was something like Angelic Wall, a 2-mana 0/4 with flying, so we can add some other abilities to our creatures. Axebane Guardian becomes so much better since so many of the cards and almost all the creatures in our deck are going to have defender. So adding X mana in a combo of colors where X is the number of creatures we have with defender is a great ability for us. Blight Pile makes more sense, 2 and a black to tap it, have everybody lose X. Or X is the number of creatures we control with defender, right? Becoming a real threat to our opponents. Blight Pile is one of the rare exceptions to defenders that has power, right? Crashing Drawbridge can tap to give all of our creatures haste until end of turn. Crystal Barricade gives us hexproof and prevents all non-combat damage to be dealt to other creatures I control. Going to help us with those Blasphemous Act, Chandra's Ignition style of board wipes. Flumph has a really fun ability. Whenever it's dealt damage, you and target opponent each draw a card. So this doesn't actually mean you have to let the person who is attacking you that you blocked with Flumph or the person that's blocking Flumph draw a card. But a lot of times what happens is you block something and you have, most of the time, the person who's either blocking you or you're attacking, they're blocking Flumph, draw a card and you kind of both benefit from that interaction. Fortified Rampart's just an 0/6 for 2, so we're getting a little bit more raw power out of our 2 mana. Same thing with Perimeter Captain. Whenever a creature we control with Defender blocks, we gain 2 life, so promotes us wanting to block with the creatures that we can. The Battlement can just add a green mana for each creature with Defender, which again, we're going to get a whole lot more of, right? Because we have more Defenders in the deck. Resolute Watchdog, just a 1/3 with Defender, but we can sack it to give a creature indestructible till end of turn. Again, great for Felothar, right? Protect her, keep her around for her ability. Shield Bearers buffing up all of our other creatures with Defender by +0/+2 is great, allowing us to get into better combats. Sylvan Carry added, adding a mana of any color. Having Hexproof is nice, again, for those early turns to get down and get some mana. Wanted to try that new Towering Viewpoint from Assassin's Creed, Defender and Reach, so we do have some blocking potential there. You can just give a creature flying until end of turn. Seems like a great idea, especially with some of our big toughness creatures like Tree of Perdition and Tree of Redemption. Both of these start as 0/13s, but can both tap. Perdition taps to trade its toughness with a opponent's life total, and Redemption can trade our life total with its toughness. I think I like Perdition a lot more, truthfully. I mean, tapping it, making it into an 0/40 or an 0/35 seems pretty darn good, especially when it becomes effectively a 35/35, right, on attacking. But both of these are just great houses of value for 4 mana when it comes to attacking and blocking. Vine Trellis can just tap for a green, and it's an 0/4 for 2 mana. Wakestone Gargoyle, another one that does have some power as opposed to just being all toughness. But for 2 mana, it can just have all of our creatures with Defender attack as though they didn't have Defender. This is a nice ability to have multiples of, just so that way if Felothar's not on the battlefield, we can still get our creatures attacking if we want to. And then Wall of Roots can put a -0/-1 counter in itself to add us a green mana once per turn to kind of help supercharge our mana if we need it. But we're not playing all defenders. Like I think we still need some creatures to care about toughness to make our defenders better. Things like Balden, which still allows them to assign their damage equal to their toughness, but can give them a buff equal to the number of cards we have in our hand whenever it attacks. A nice way to give them, right, some real value. I think we still play the Arbor Adherent from the Commander deck, right, tapping for mana or tapping for X mana, where X is the highest toughness among creatures we control. It's still a great powerhouse of value, even though it doesn't have Defender. I think we still care about bringing in Baitor, right, to have that huge ability at the end of our turn, depending on how much toughness we have. Of course, getting up to 40 and having each of their opponents lose half their life rounded up. It's still a great ability in the deck, even though he doesn't have Baitor doesn't have Defender. I think it's still worth bringing it in. Same thing with something like Doran. It may not have Defender, but it's not only going to give us that toughness ability like Felothar does, but it actually forces our opponents to do it too, which may be unbeneficial to them. Not very often, but it could be sometimes. Icarus Shadiki is just going to allow us to gain some life when our creatures hit our opponents equal to that creature's toughness. So again, allowing us just to get some life back, and it being a 3/7 is still very good for Felothar's ability and all of that. And then Meek Stone is a card that's really going to help us out a ton. So creatures with power 3 or greater don't untap during their controller's untap steps. Almost all of our creatures are power 2 or lower. We do have a couple that are above that, so we can just be careful to not attack with them, right? Not tap them. But Makestone should hopefully punish our opponents in having their creatures, right, not on tap. Assault Formation kind of does the same thing as what Felothar is doing, having that toughness matter more than power. For green, we can give a defender the right to attack this turn if it didn't have defender, and then for 3 mana, we can just give our creatures a +0/+1 buff, which isn't a bad thing. If we have the mana, it might be worth just giving a flat +0/+2 or +0/+3 buff to our whole board and get into combat. I think Jaws of Defeat really matters a lot more here. Every time a creature comes in, and a target opponent loses life equal to the difference between its power and toughness, just allowing us to spread out some damage. And then since most of the creatures in our deck have power 2 or less, we really get to take advantage of Smile at Death in this deck. At the beginning of our upkeep, returning up to 2 target creatures with power 2 or less from our graveyard back to the battlefield, and they get a counter on them. This works really well with Felothar's last ability, because we could then sack them, right, for the draw, right, and then keep bringing them back to do that if we wanted to. Of course, we'd have to pitch at least one, even if there's 0 power, because of that counter. But again, it might just be useful to keep churning through our deck if need be. Since we are attacking with these creatures and their big toughness, we want to make sure they can hit hard, giving them trample with things like Garruk's Uprising and Primal Rage, just so that way, if my 06 is a 6/6, it can get through for that damage. Garruk's Uprising is probably not going to draw us a ton of cards, but there are scenarios with things like Baitor where it could draw us cards. More often than not, it's not going to happen, but I think the 3 mana for the trample is well worth it. I mean, if you have a board of 04s and 05s that are hitting as 5/5s, the trample is going to matter at some point to push through. And then Brave the Sands gives them vigilance, but the key thing on Brave the Sands I really like is the bottom text. Each creature we control can block an additional creature during each combat. This is really useful to lock up some more creatures into combat so that they can't sneak through, right? If we have 2 defenders, right, we can block up to 4 creatures, right? Really allow less damage to go through, even if we have to leave a wall, we have to lose a wall or 2 in the process. And since we're assigning combat damage equal to our toughness, that means that we can also dole out some damage back, right, in those combats, and we're not just straight out losing them. But I've said that before on the show, and I'll say it again, no deck's ever complete, although we did look at Felothar and Precon Week. We're focusing more here on the defenders, and going into testing, I think there's still some more effects we can take advantage of. Like the first one off the top of my mind is something like Assemble the Players. Lets us cast creature spell with power 2 or less from the top of our library, and also lets us look at the top card. I think it makes a ton of sense, especially when all of our creatures are that. Dormant Grove looks cool. At the start of our combat, we can put a counter on our creature we control, and if it has 6 or more toughness, you flip it over to 3/6 that just gives all your creatures vigilance. Again, it's a house of value, but focusing more on the defenders, I wanted to make sure we gave more of the spots to them, especially when we can try to get multiples of them out on a turn. And then Bedrock Tortoise just kind of gives us another copy of that Toughness Matters ability, but it also gives our creatures hexproof on our turn. These are just more pieces to consider, but I think we still want to keep the walls the main point, keep them the main focus of the deck, but we could obviously get more out of it. But let's do what we love to do most on the channel and get into our playtest. Remember, the goal of playtests on our channel is not to find magical Christmas land. It's not to show off all our best plays, but it's to get in some game scenarios and kind of understand how we're going to make this deck work. Here we're keeping a 4/5 lander with Meekstone and Flump. So a lot of stuff in our hands going to get us right up to Felothar. Meekstone can hopefully help us lock our opponents down just a little bit. We'll put the Citadel in turn 1 just to get access to all of our colors. And I like Meekstone here. I like Flump. Either of them I think are perfectly fine. The only thing I kind of like about putting Flump down here is that now on this turn, Axebane Guardian, right, can tap for 2 next turn, right? So that's 6, Felothar's 4. You could do it like it plus Brave the Sands, and then the Flump could attack this turn, right? Because of Felothar, which would be pretty nice. Coming here to turn 5, we get the Meekstone down, right? I'm kind of thinking we need to start drawing because we're kind of running out of flyers, or sorry, out of defenders. So I think I would just sack Flump. It's going to take most of our turn to do it, but we're going to draw 4 cards. And my thought here is now maybe we can get into some better things. We see Smell at Death. Well, there's our way to get Flump back. McCready, which can give all of our creatures the power to less Skulk, making them basically harder to block. Wall of Blossoms, another defender, and then Sight of the Scale Lords, which can buff our creatures with toughness 4 or greater at the start of combat, so it can help us with attacking. So as we come back into our turn, I really like Smile at Death. Unfortunately, Axebane's only back to tapping for 1, so it's 7 mana total here that we have access to. So we could do Smile at Death. That would leave us with 2 mana, so we could do like Wall of Blossoms plus Smile. I like the idea of Wall of Blossoms just to see what we get ourselves into. We get into Angelic Wall. Because my thought was something like Scale Lords, and now like these guys are better attackers when we get in there. The fun part about something like Toxic Deluge is since we have high toughness, giving a whole board -2/-2 right now really wouldn't hurt us, but might hurt a lot more people. I guess Felothar could be fine since they're zeros. Basically, they're going to be near impossible to block, right? Because I imagine our opponents aren't going to have a lot of 0 attack defenders, right? So that could make our value there pretty good. I don't even mind just going Angelic Wall. But I think with the 5 mana, I think Smile at Death at least makes some sense. So does the Scale Lords. Like, I like both of them. The only problem with the Scale Lords is it doesn't mix that great with McCready, right? It makes them easier to block. We have Dusk for that now, one-sided board wipe. I think I'll just do the Smile at Death. Just as an option to start getting my creatures back. Felothar can still attack this turn. So coming into our turn, we can bring the Flump back with a counter on it. So now if we sack it, right, it would be draw 5, pitch 1. Well, Primal Rage does actually help a lot, especially if because our opponents can still block. And we're now at 3 on the Axebane, so we're at 9 mana total, which is a lot of mana, right? I'm kind of thinking the Primal Rage. We can get the wall in. That's 4, so I've got 5 left. And I'm really just thinking about the Scale Lords. Really works really nice with this trample, right? Now we can take some big attacks this turn. Everything. The nice part about this is all the creatures' power is going to go down from that Scale Lords. So even though the Scale Lords would make this a 3/7, at the end of our turn, Meekstone checks on our upkeep, where all these will be back down to 0, right? So the Scale Lords is kind of a nice combination with Meekstone because we're only going to get that buff, right, temporarily, and we take some big attacks this turn here, right? This is a 2/6. This was tapped, and this is a 2/7. 6 and 7, right, attacking through in there. We see the Perdition. We could go ahead and just sack another creature this turn. We could play Perdition, sack one of our other creatures to draw some more cards. Right? I think we're in a good spot here, especially when we can start getting the things back that we sacrificed. Let's get into playtest number 2, keeping a 1/2/3 lander with Farseek, Gleaming Barrier, and 0/4 that makes a treasure when it dies. Wall of Omens, classic draw card, and then Wingmate Chaplain, an 0/3 defender that when it comes in makes a bird with flying for each creature with defender you control, and whenever another creature with defender enters, we get a bird. So a way to kind of keep going wider, right? We'll play the Brushland. We'll play the Fetid Heath. I think I'll just go digging on the Farseek. just to get ourselves some more mana. We kind of got to decide what we're gonna do this turn, whether it's Omen plus Barrier, Omens plus Barrier, or if it's just Felothar. I kind of like this as my option because it draws me a card, and now both of them could attack. Right, this turn when Felothar comes in, right now both of these could attack. Right, really taking advantage of Felothar's ability to let them attack. Coming into our next turn, 6 mana. Jaws of Defeat's great, but just a teeny bit late for what we'd want. I guess we make the Wingmate. Gives us 2 birds, right? And we can just go crack something like the Nature's Lore. My thought is just try to get some more mana in so that when we... am I playing any dual lands? I honestly don't remember. So we'll just go get a forest. Again, they can still attack this turn. Because my thought now is if I sack one of these to go draw some cards, right? Now we have more mana to do things. We got 5 extra mana. I guess we'll do the barrier, right? Draw 4 and make a treasure, right? Because that's what happens when the barrier dies. So now we've got 6 mana. Garrick's Uprising for the trample feels pretty good. I'm thinking what? Soul Ring, Uprising, Resolute Watchdog now to protect this, and we get another bird. And then now we've got the mana up in the treasure to protect Felothar if we need to. Again, just attack with Felothar here, and we can attack with the birds, right? And now we're just keeping up mana for things. We could play Jaws of Defeat, sack another wall if we want to get some cards still drawn. But again, I think we're in good shape there on maximizing our board, especially we're still in bracket 2 on this one, right? So we don't expect super explosive mid-game turns, but we do expect to get some value right onto the board. Here we're keeping a 3-lander with that new Rampart Architect, the one that makes a wall when it comes in, and whenever a creature with Defender dies, we get to go get a basic land. There's the Smile of Death. Orange Frostfang giving all of our attacking creatures death touch them whenever they hit, draw a card. Just feels really good, right? I think we've got to get the Vista in turn 1 tapped. Because we do want to go for this. I think we want to go for this Rampant Growth. I see double green. I see double white. We have double white. We don't have double green. So let's go get the forest. Turn 4, I guess we'll put the Reliquary Tower down, right? So on future turns, we don't have to worry about that. We'll just get... Do we get Felothar in? Yeah. There's the Cemetery turn 5. I was thinking the Architect, but it doesn't really leave me with a ton of things to do after that. Comes in, makes us a 1/3 white wall. So now they can attack this turn, right? Uprising could give them trample, right? Allow them to hit through a little harder. Frostfang could just be good this turn to start potentially drawing us a couple cards if our opponents don't really want to block a 6/6 Death Toucher, right? My thought there is that gives us some extra value. Now we can go like, Axebane Guardian, Drawbridge. Go Uprising just to promote the trample, especially with that Death Touch, and then go for like the Axebane Guardian for some mana next turn. And again, I think we're at a solid shape now where we can start sacrificing our walls to draw cards. We ramp when we do it with the Architect. And I think all we need is a few more cards and we can start getting things back with Smile of Death. I think we're in a good spot. We got the trample. And we're going to start drawing more cards right with Orin Frostfang. But let's get into our last playtest. The playtests are kind of short because truthfully at bracket 2, you're just looking to get to your board state, right? And hope you don't get wiped. Here we're at 2 lands, but we do have the Nature's Lore into the Axebane. So we're not looking too bad. We got the Architect, the Tree of Perdition, and Fortified Rampart. So we got some decent walls. We're just, oh, well, there we go. We have the Soaring. The Soaring makes that a lot better because now... Now I can't Nature's Lore plus Axebane Guardian. Axebane Guardian does feel pretty good. Is it just the Perdition? Get the threat in. Now this turn I can Axebane plus Fortified Rampart. Again, now next turn, right, when Felothar comes down, right, this starts getting a lot more dangerous for our opponents, and we would still have enough to Nature's Lore this turn, just to get another land, and now all these can attack this turn. We could also just tap the Perdition if we want to use its ability, right? Hinder that one opponent back down. And now, right, coming back into our turn, we could get the Rampart in, get that 1/3 wall, and then my thought is just sack the 1/3 wall, draw 3, pitch 1. The formation feels like it is coming in a good time. That's gonna, sorry, it's also gonna ramp me for a land. I think the Carolitid's, well, the Carolitid's a good draw option for Felothar, and we'll just go get a random basic land off of the Architect. That's the really nice thing with the Architect is that ramp, right? Again, take some attacks this turn, tap this for the for that. We could, if we don't have anything better to do with the Guardian, we could get, like we could get like Assault Formation down. We could also get, Brave the Sands down this turn. Actually, we might have enough mana to get that and Assault Formation down. And then I think we're just in great shape, continuing to attack. If somebody wipes the board, somebody wipes the board. I mean, that's the problem at bracket 2 is we're playing protection, but just not enough. I think we really just want to keep sacking right creatures to get into draw. I mean, we could do something like Tree or Perdition, even if it's at 40, to just like draw most of our library, right? We could do that if we want, since we have the Reliquary Tower. I mean, there's a lot of ways at that point, but I think it's just going to come down to adapting this to what you're seeing at your tables. Do you need more removal? Do you need more protection? Making it your own in that way. And I think the deck can be pretty viable. I mean, it's good at what it does. It's just a little slow, right? But I mean, within bracket 2, every deck's going to be slow. So it's not like you really have to worry about that all that much. But I mean, this gives you a good starting off point, right, to go that way. But let me know what you think of this version of Felothar, and I'll catch you all in the next one.